Hey guys, how's it going? This is Josh here from the Live the Movie crew. I have Eric and Mallory here. You can say hi, guys.
Hey Josh.
Hey!
Hey, hey everybody. Um, so yeah, if you're new to this, this is what's called the Live the Movie crew. What we do here is we are basically an accountability group, and we've each set a particular goal that we want to go after for the year as an annual goal. And this call is essentially a way for us to hold each other accountable to those goals and sort of check in, make sure everybody is working toward the goals that they've set. And if there's anything that hasn't been going right for them, then we can kind of help fix that along the way, so on and so forth. And so, if you're joining us just for the first time, um, my big suggestion to you would also be to pick a goal that you're going for the year, break it down into action steps, and figure out exactly how you can do that through the year. So just so you guys know, Eric and Mallory both have savings goals. Eric's goal is to save $15,000 for the year. Mallory's goal is to save $6,000 for the year. And my goal is not a financial goal. Um, my goal is to get a job, actually. I'm working hard trying to procure a position in higher education. And so my goal is to get a job, and my action steps are applications and interviews. And so my benchmarks would be to apply for at least 12 jobs a month and get at least one interview each month. So until I get the job, obviously. So that's where I'm at. So I want to do a little recognition here. I did have Eric and Mallory text me their progress, and I'm happy to say that Eric is at $1,100 toward his financial goal. And so that puts him just about $150 behind, which means he's probably pretty much right on track. Because I think saving $150 extra is probably not that hard when you've saved $1,100 already. So we can give Eric a hand. I don't know if you guys can hear my hand, but anyways, I know Mallory is not exactly where she wants to be. I don't know if you'd feel great if I said your number, Mal. Um, no, okay, not where you want. So yeah, so Mal's working hard. We had a little text exchange today. And so she, like I said before, is not quite where she wants to be. So again, she's going to be working hard to improve what she's doing. And I am proud to say that I filled out 15 applications this past month, and I had an interview as well at the beginning of the month. So I hit my goal for the month. So that's all. That's all awesome. All right. So another part of this group is that we actually read one book each month. And so for this month, our book is The Leader. The Leader Who Had No Title by Robin Sharma. It's a great book. Mal has it up there, and it's basically a fiction book about a leader um, who doesn't really have a title. He just starts off as this ordinary person, and he builds himself up. I think he says in the book that he becomes the vice president of the bookstore that he works at. So I'll introduce the couple of characters that we've been introduced to so far in the first two chapters. So we were asked to read the first two chapters of the book this week. And by the way, guys, just so you know, next week it'll be the same first two chapters. Or sorry, next two chapters. Um, and so in the first two chapters, we're introduced to the main character, Blake Lively. Or not Blake Lively. What's his name? Blake Davis. Blake Davis. And he basically proclaims himself as basically having used to be an ordinary person who eventually met with several leadership mentors to build himself into the position that he's in today, which is a vice president at his bookstore. And he said that when he came into the bookstore, he just did it as a job, didn't really have any intentions of going anywhere with it. And so it was just basically something to help him make money and spend his time. He had also been in the military, which had definitely made him somewhat depressed. His parents both died. I think it was in a car accident, said in the book. And so he starts off in the book as kind of just not where he wants to be and not going after anything. And so, and then the other character we meet in the second chapter is Tommy Flynn, who essentially becomes Blake's mentor. And Tommy was the bookstore's Employee of the Year for I think 5 years running. So the bookstore in this book a has a contest every year, and what they do is they get submissions from all their retailers in the area, and the number one retailer gets a cash bonus and gets to go on a trip. I think it was to Aruba in the book, if I remember right. And so throughout this book, it is a book of fiction, but it essentially gets at a lot of the types of leadership lessons that um, that we uh, that we kind of hold as a group. And um, so a lot of the things that are covered in this book are essentially the same types of things. So let me see here. Okay, so I'm going to start at chapter 1. Chapter 1's really short. It's just basically an introduction, like I said, to Blake. It's called "Leadership and Success Are Your Birthright." And so this is essentially where Blake reveals himself as basically the person that he used to be, and he mentions that his parents died in the car crash, and that um, he's not doesn't come from extraordinary surroundings or anything like that. He's just kind of an ordinary person, just like basically anyone. And so he starts talking about how he got this job at the bookstore, and he says in his early 20s he was drifting from one job to the next, just coasting for a while. Also says that his one of the things that was really struck me was that in this period of his life, work was just a means to pay his bills, rather than a platform to express his best. And it really reminded me a lot of there was an encyclical that Pope John Paul II wrote. It's called Laborem Exercens, which is Latin for, I think, on the dignity of human work. Um, and that the very first sentence of that encyclical, John Paul writes, "Through work, man must earn his daily bread and contribute to the continual advance of science and technology, and above all, to elevate unceasingly the cultural and moral level of the society within which he lives in community with those who belong in the same family." So essentially what he's saying there in that intro, and he echoes it throughout the entire encyclical. By the way, for those of you who don't know what an encyclical is, it's basically a letter that the Pope writes to the entire church in Catholicism. So this encyclical is about how work essentially brings out the dignity of man and essentially separates him from all the other animals that exist. And so it's very easy to think, for us humans, to think of work as just something that we do and just something that we endure. But in all reality, that really isn't the meaning of work. The meaning of work is the ability to essentially separate ourselves from anything else that exists on the planet. And so when you see work that way, it just makes a lot of sense to think, that's, what we do has much more of an impact on people when we understand that, rather than when we just go through the day. So, let's see here. What else was mentioned in the first chapter? There wasn't a whole lot in the first chapter because it is very short. What stood out to me was that Blake's parents weren't perfect, but they did the best that they could for him, as I would expect that any parent would do. And he said that the mindset that he got from his parents was just to make sure that you've done your absolute best. That's all you can do. And then just go home and get a good night's sleep. He says on page 2, he says, "Worrying about things beyond your control is a pretty good formula for illness." So that kind of struck me too, as well, just to make sure that we, obviously just do our best effort and then don't go crazy over whether we did our best effort or not. So at this point, Eric and Mal, do you have anything to add? Is there anything else that stuck out to you?
I was going to say, Josh, I think those are all good points that you brought up. One of the things that I'll kind of mention throughout the book, and I'm sure you guys will as well, is you know, there's some objectives with where the story is going. It's one of the things is that he picked a character, or Robin Sharma picked a character that kind of had a decent perspective on life, learned from a good, you know, upbringing of parents, and then had his world kind of, you know, torn apart when they you know, passed away. So he's trying to give an extreme example, because a lot of times you have people start to learn things like the leadership and personal development principles that he talks about, but one of the objections is, yeah, but like that works if your life's okay or your life's fine, but my life is, you know, a mess because of A, B, and C. But when he picks an extreme example, but can reference that he used to have a decent perspective and he just lost track of it, and then he finds that mentor that teaches him the principles, now you have someone that is reading the book that, you know, might not have been open to this type of stuff, and now they are, because all their objections are kind of lived through the character. And not only you know, with Blake, but also by, you know, his mentor, as he, you know, is very skeptical of some of the things that he says and the way he dresses and his philosophy and all this stuff. It's the things that someone who's skeptical would be thinking in their own mind. So when you actually get into the rest of the story, you have somebody's opened themselves up to actually be willing to listen and hear what he has to say. And I think that, like you said, these fables are a great approach that an author can take to influence. I believe you're more likely to get someone who's not been open to this type of work to actually be open to it by reading a fable that can do that. And you think about any story that, you know, that you get really excited about, you usually relate to the main character and their story in some way. And you kind of live vicariously through them, through the book, through the movie, whatever it is, and then seeing them overcome challenges and reach their ultimate goal. But it's more about who they become than the actual goal. That's what it's all about, and that's what our group's about. When you talk about Live the Movie. So I think Josh just dropped off because he's trying to call me. But so Mal, if you want to add anything here, and I could see what Josh is up to.
I was wondering if he was going to have any internet problems like he usually does, but yeah, he's doing a great job so far. I think, I mean, you mentioned it too. I really like how the way Robin describes the main character, Blake, is just so relatable. And it is a bit extreme with the parents' death, and, you know, he was depressed because he felt alone, and then ended up going into the military to kind of, you know, make up to basically find himself again. And I think it's definitely relatable in a sense that some people have gone through something like he's gone through, but it also puts into perspective, you know, if you think, you know, whatever issues you're having in your own life, everybody has problems. There's not a single person whose life is perfect in this world, which is what makes us human and what makes us, you know, able to communicate with each other about different things and feel compassion for each other. And I think it puts into perspective, like, this is what this main character is going through. If I relate my life to, you know, that, you know, his circumstance, it's not really, if he can go through that and still come out of it, you know, in a really good place, then I got a lot of things going for me. So it kind of puts into perspective what you have going on in your life, and extra motivation to push yourself in a way that you maybe didn't think of before. And he does it in such a great way, like you said, with the storytelling. Instead of just being like, do this, do this, do this, and you'll be successful, the way he tells the story of the main character going through the challenges that he's faced, and kind of sets you up for has to follow in your own life, but in a way that, you know, not a lot of these types of books do. Like, this book is designed to be like a self-help or, you know, personal development book, but it's not really set up the same way. So it's really unique in that sense because of how relatable the main character is and how you can relate your own life to it and use his story to branch out in your own life and actually do something that you really want to achieve. So I really like that aspect of it. And what Josh is talking about with the work, it's such a good point to make, that, you know, some people wake up and work is just something that they have to go to, and then they get to come home and actually do their life or live their life. And work in reality for a lot of people is a lot of their life. So instead of looking at it as something that you have to go to, or something that will take up your time before you can really follow your dreams, imagine if you approached it as, you know, I'm grateful that I have a job, for one thing, and for another thing, I can put my all into it, instead of going there and being sluggish. And, you know, you would want to act if you had the position that you wanted to have, instead of going there and being a complainer and things like that, because work is really something that, you know, about, but I think it might be something to look at in a different way, which is great that you made that point, Josh.
Yeah, definitely. Makes a lot of sense. Sorry, guys, I keep getting booted off the calls for whatever reason. Um, I'm not sure why Google Chrome doesn't, or Google Hangouts rather, don't really work that well on my computer. But if I do get snagged again, Eric, do you mind if I just give you a call, and you can put me on speakerphone or something like that? That way I don't end up having to jump off the call over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, we could see if it works. If you can get back pretty quick, we obviously can jump into the discussion, and kind of run with it for a minute. I know it's tough to get back on, but I don't know how well the speaker will work, going from a speaker to a speaker onto the computer. So if you jump off for a while, we obviously can do that so you get your points in. But if it seems like you can get back in pretty quick, then I know it's annoying, but, you know, we'll be able to add our input for a few minutes. So it's almost like you're just not talking at that point.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Well, I'll see if I can figure it out. So,
so
all right, cool. So yeah, so I'll get into chapter 2 here then. So chapter 2 is where Blake meets Tommy, and so he looks at Tommy. Tommy basically has really balding hair. I forget if he has. I think he has the really he basically looks really disheveled and doesn't really look all that put together. But since Tommy goes up and introduces himself to Blake, and basically kind of reminds him that I guess Tommy was kind of related to Blake's family in some way. I think that Tommy knew his father and had meant to try to inspire Blake a little bit in some sort of way, but he just hadn't had any opportunity to get in touch with him until Tommy basically got transferred out of another bookstore inside of New York into Blake's bookstore. And so Blake really wonders what the heck is going on, and he wasn't really sure. I was the one who was, you know, introducing himself to him and all that sort of stuff. But eventually, Blake and Tom get to know each other, and they eventually figure out, you know, what's going on. And so basically, Tommy tries to make the impression on Blake that, you know, Tommy wants to be a really good mentor to him and be a good coach to him. And on page 8, Tommy says, "Doing my best work is all that matters to me. I don't need to have any form of that." And
still there, Josh?
uh, telling Blake that he, you know, basically did
Is he still there? No.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I hope. You still there, Josh?
I think so. I think it fixed
Oh
itself
yeah,
for some
you're
reason.
here.
I don't know what happened there.
All right, keep
Yeah.
going. Keep
All
going.
right. So where did you guys last hear me?
I'm not sure because we were kind of probably about like 15 seconds ago. I don't know how far back that was because you were going in and out, and we were trying to keep track of whether you were going to go out.
Yeah, it's losing me again. Can you guys hear me?
Now we can. Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'll try to pick up where I left off here. Um, so yeah, so Tommy says on page 8, doing my best work is all that matters to me. I don't need to have any formal authority to do that. And so he's basically talking about how he still wants to do his best work, even though he's decided over the years that he doesn't want any management positions, any sort of thing like that. So you don't really have to be a manager to be great at your job. You do have to be good at your to be a manager. Um, Again, you don't really have. Sometimes the best role for you might be just it takes just a certain to be a manager or to be any in any formal authority. And one of the things that Tommy said was that one of the reasons why he moved stores was because he realized he wasn't growing at his old store. He thought he could make more of a difference at Blake's store, and so I think you know it just makes a lot of sense to me that that's something that um, you don't have. Again, it place for yourself isn't necessary. It's more of a purpose. Eric explains this to me all the time. It's a matter of just being yourself to the position that you're in, right? And then if you want, like me, that, but you tend to earn that. So because of um, who you're doing. So he mentions that. And the other thing he said that really stuck out to me too um, was he asked the question, why would I leave the job that I love so much? And I've asked myself that same question too, because I think if I'm at the job that I love the most, I personally, and you guys can say whatever you want with this, but I personally don't see any real reason to retire other than health. Um, and the only reason I say that is because you love, then there's no real sense in not working. Remember, as I explained last chapter, it's our purpose. Um, and so, to me, being I'm done working is kind of like so about that. But that's essentially how that's my take on work. So let me see where I am here because I don't think we're all, but I think I'm pretty well through my notes.
Josh, I was going to just jump in and reiterate a couple things you were saying because I think you made some great points. Is that one of the things I was going to say is that it's really a mentality shift rather than something different actually happening, because you say, well, I still might get promoted to be a manager or a director or whatever, and that's true. But if you're doing it because you want to serve the customers or whoever you're interacting with, and you're doing it for your motivation is for that, to serve your customers, and because of that you get promoted to a leadership role. Well, you're already being a leader, therefore they might have promoted you to a leadership role. So it's kind of just, it's a shift in mentality rather than you might end up in a different outcome. And the other one you said I actually do agree with is, if you're doing work that is truly what you love and is truly your mission, then you really should always be doing it and unless you have health reasons. Of course, maybe at some point you want to spend a little bit more time with family or go on vacations, or maybe you don't want to have an official, paid job, but maybe you're doing a charity that's related to it or something else. But you always got to be working towards that, because you can't give up on what it is that you believe that you really are and what you're here to do. So I agree with you on that point. So I would just wanted to give my 2 cents on the last two things you said, because I think they were right on.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, definitely. It makes a lot of sense. Let me see here. Anybody, Mel, do you have anything else to add, or?
Yeah, I just was flipping through because I did highlight a couple sections of the book that stood out to me as just great reminders. This one is actually from the very last paragraph of chapter 1. It says, "I've come to understand that hard times do make better people, that in the middle of difficulty lives opportunity, and that each of us is built to win in both work and life." So that just reminds us what we were talking about before, of how the character Blake is set up to be going through this really difficult time. But a lot of times that it builds our character when we go through really difficult times, because we have to make difficult decisions about certain things, and it just makes us stronger individuals, stronger emotionally, could be even stronger physically, spiritually, different things like that. And I think as time goes by and we get older and we learn different things about life and we read books like this, it just grows us and gives us the ability to add value to other people. And our focus, my focus is definitely to add value to people every day, and not just at home, but at work too. And I think that's what I think Tommy really focuses on too, is adding value to people, which is why, and he is very eccentric, and I love that. When they were describing the character, it made me think of never judge a book by its cover, because you never know who the person who's going to influence you the most is going to be. You just, people are brought into our lives at certain times for a very good reason. And it's really cool that, Tommy comes into Blake's life this way. And in the second chapter, this quote says, "Life's had to break you down so you could be rebuilt better." So I think if somebody kind of coasts through life and doesn't really have anything dramatic or challenging, that they don't go through anything like that, then sometimes they don't really learn as much as they could if they did go through a major challenge. So, and that also goes back to putting yourself out there and putting yourself in a position where you could go through a major challenge, and that's okay, because you're just going to learn from it. And if you fail, great, because then you can learn how to succeed the next time you approach it. And if you succeed, then you move on to a bigger challenge. So it's good to kind of push yourself, and like Eric was talking about, having the mental shift of it's not something that's going to happen to me that's going to make me the person that I'm going to be. It's how I'm going to respond to that situation, and having that mentality of, I'm going to grow from situations that occur, and also help others along the way while I go through challenges. So I think that's the 2 cents I have so far. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Josh, about those 2 chapters, or closing remarks.
I think another thing that I had underlined in here was that Tommy eventually says getting lost along your path is part of finding the path that you're meant to be on. And so I thought that was pretty profound, that, even if you feel like you're not in the right place right now, truth is you actually are, because you need to be in that kind of lost area in order to find yourself, in order to ensure that you're on the right direction, on the right path. So I think that's kind of profound. Eventually, Tommy gets into a music analogy. I think he starts describing a symphony in here somewhere. And of course, since I was a music major, it really gelled well with me. But essentially, what happens if even just one person in a symphony doesn't execute something properly, the symphony doesn't come out right. And so whoever's in the orchestra needs to make sure that they get their parts down in order that whole song comes. It's actually kind of funny. I I played in a lot of ensembles and all that sort of stuff, and we're very small and smaller ensemble, more magnificent. And so, together, then well, off by a lot. So Robinson's golf analogy, where he says, if you hit the ball perfectly on point, it goes right where you want. But even if you hit it a millimeter off, it can go really far off if you hit it over a long distance. And so it's that same sort of idea that in order for an organization to work at perfect harmony, and everybody has to get their own part down, everybody has to lead in their own roles in order for the organization to work at its peak performance. So that was definitely that I got a lot out of. And then also just I think he says, or either that or the book says somewhere, you have to pay to get the reward. And that connects a lot to Jim Rohn's book that we just read, the 5 major pieces of the life puzzle, where he pretty much repeats that ad nauseum, that you have to put in the work in order to get the reward. The harvest, he plows so it's too. Oh, and the other thing he says too is that the reward, a lot of kind of being patient and waiting for the rewards. Sometimes, like, you're doing a lot of work and doing a lot of work, and it can be kind of hard to stay motivated kind of work. But the only way that you'll get rewarded is if you keep doing that work, and then eventually something will come out right for you, and you'll eventually get what you're looking for. So, all right. So that's pretty much all I have from the chapters. Do you guys have anything else to add before I go into an exercise?
Yeah, Josh, I was thinking of what you were talking about, and I think I might have mentioned this recently, but I've been seeing a lot of videos recently by Gary Vaynerchuk, who's a entrepreneur, and he actually started out working at his family's wine store, and then he turned it into a YouTube TV show and started making money from it. And from there, he became an investor in all these companies. And now he has a business to help entrepreneurs, grow businesses. And then he is a speaker and all that stuff. And he just has a very interesting approach. He's very blunt and upfront. He's a very positive guy. He uses, foul language and all this stuff to kind of be dramatic, kind of like Tony Robbins. But one of the things he says is, I've seen a couple videos recently, but I think he was at like a Beachbody event or something recently, which is like a network marketing thing. And he was saying, most of you will not succeed at this or anything like this, not because you won't work hard, but because you don't have any patience. Someone got you into this because they said, oh, you can make $1 million in 5 minutes. One person actually did that. And then there was millions of other people who tried, and that's not how it worked out. And he said something in this video I saw yesterday. He said, people message me all the time seeing how successful I am, and they say, wow, Gary, you're so lucky. And these are people from like college and stuff. And he goes, I reply to every single one of those emails. And I start with something very, very nice. I say, hey, Judy, how are you? It looks great. Happy, have a couple kids or whatever's going on. And then but then the rest of his email says, by the way, I'm not lucky at all. Do you remember when we graduated and then you went to every party for the next 8 years? Yeah, I worked 15 hours a day at my family's store, 7 days a week, 15 hours a day, and started my YouTube channel and busted my butt. And because I did that and I was patient with the results, I've reaped all these rewards. But thanks for the note or whatever. And he signs it, Gary. So it was just that interesting thing that, it's like, oh, do I have to work 15 hours a day, 7 days a week? Well, not necessarily, but if it's something you're passionate about, it's what you want, you're doing it for your customers, not necessarily totally motivated by the outcome will come to you because you're willing to be selfless and lead without a title, which is what the book's really all about.
Well, Josh is still kind of breaking up a little
Sounds like
bit.
I'm
I
kind of
mean,
freezing up here.
yeah. I think the last paragraph that I kind of highlighted, he was talking about, it says, you'll always reap what you sow. The chickens will always come home to roost. You'll always get what you deserve. Even the smallest good act has set in motion a good consequence. And what Josh kind of mentioned at the very end there about sometimes we do really have to be patient for the results that we know we're going to get in the future, but we don't necessarily see right away, because some of the actions that we take don't show immediate results. And I talk a lot about consistency and persistency and things like that. And I think giving yourself time to reap the rewards that you put into action and put into place initially, you just got to stick with something and see it through to be able to see the outcome that you want to achieve. So, and it relates to kind of what Josh is doing too with his interviews. Eventually he'll get his dream job, and he doesn't really know what the path looks like between now and then, or the things he's going to have to go through to get it. But because he's determined and because he's still putting in the action steps now, he will eventually be in his dream job, and it's just a matter of time. And same with the savings thing, as long as I keep putting a focus on it and Eric keeps putting a focus on it, eventually it will click and it will, the goal will be achieved. And it's just a matter of time and being consistent and looking for new opportunities and overcoming challenges along the way. And that's just life. So.
Awesome. Cool. I'm seeing a lot of mouth movements and no sound, so I don't know. I might be behind you guys a little bit there. Anyways, so yeah, it's really good insight, Mallory. Really good insight, Eric. Last thing I'm gonna have you guys do, and you guys can either pull out a sheet of paper or get some document up on Microsoft Word or whatever you guys have. What I'm gonna have you guys do is just jot down just, I guess, 5 either characteristics about yourself or like steps. I think maybe like it'll do to better your life without title or without upon you. It's basically anything a title. So you guys down, then yeah.
Did you catch that last part, Eric? Or could you repeat it, Josh, if you're still on?
I'm still here. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
I heard characteristics, and then it kind of broke up.
Kind of broke up. Okay. So just characteristics that you can kind of just kind of remind yourself that you actually have that you can utilize in your work. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be anything that basically just trying to think of things that you can use right away, regardless of what your title is, that either maybe just didn't realize you could do, or maybe you've kind of lost your way a little bit, and you can kind of use that to improve. That makes sense? Okay. Go right on ahead.
So you wanted 5 characteristics?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm done. Do we share?
Yeah, go ahead. I've only got one down so far.
So this is such a good reminder, Josh. I'm so glad we're doing this, because, when I think about the characteristics that I want to have, that I want to bring to life every day, and if I think about how I'm applying that to work now, it's like, okay, I could definitely brush up on some of these at work now. But I just wrote down creativity, passion, energetic, organized, and driven. And like I said, some of these, with the position that I have now, my goal is to become an art teacher and to own an art studio someday. And with the position I have now, I'm just doing some work that's just office work, actually, and it's not really my passion. But it's not to say, like you said, that doesn't matter what title I have. It's not to say that I can't apply these 5 characteristics to the job I have currently, especially with the organization and the creativity and just bringing energy, because I'm the front desk at an office and I'm the first person that they see, and kind of the first impression of the company. And if I don't bring my A game and my energy and my passion to that, then they're going to get a bad feeling when they come in. So that's definitely something that's just such a great reminder. So I'm glad we did this.
Awesome. Cool. See you turn off your microphone, Eric. Go on ahead.
Yeah, so I wrote a few a little different. I wrote a critical thinker, ask good questions, because you always can be in a situation to ask good questions to help the people around you think of things the right way. Because maybe you're in a position or you're doing stuff where you actually don't know as much as the people around you, but if you can ask good questions, they're going to come up with the answers, and you might just be the facilitator to help that in any situation. I wrote down consistency. I wrote down growth-oriented, contributor, and then I wrote down caring. So those are the 5 that I wrote down. And one of the interesting things, and you guys usually hear me tell analogies to like relationship, because it just seems like the best example always, is a lot of times you'll see someone who's struggling to find a relationship and they'd say, well, I'm down because I don't have a relationship, but if I was in one, I'd be happy, and I'd be like A, B, C, D, E, and like this exercise, right? I would act in these 5 ways, and it's like, well, if you're only going to act that way, if you already get your outcome, why would someone want to participate in that? Because you're either going to attract someone who's interested in who you're being, which is not who you are, or if you end up somehow finding that person, they're not going to see you as real, because they're going to be attracted first to who you're being, and then you act a different way, and it's like, wait, who the heck is this? So same thing, even if you're not doing your dream job, or it's not the ideal position, or you're doing it for financial reasons or whatever you're doing, if you're not in practice of living out those 5 characteristics, you think that you're going to show up day one of doing what you want to do and just be amazing at those 5 things? No. What you have to look at is the opposite, is if I can practice this, doing something that I'm not as passionate about, but I'm passionate about helping people, and if I can do it in this environment, how good am I going to be when I actually get to do it in the environment that I want to? So it's kind of a reverse way of thinking on that.
Awesome. Cool. And then I can share mine over here. So first one I put down was promptness, as in being on time. It's always helpful just to be, especially with Cutco appointments too, just to be, on time and ready for whatever is going to happen. And then, you don't have to worry about this house, all that stuff. I don't know if I'll wait just a second here. See if it clicks. You guys good? Can you hear me? I think I got cut off there for a second. All right, cool. All right, so the second one I put down was trustworthiness. And again, just making sure, to me, telling the truth is one of the most important things you can do in life. And it's obviously really important with work too, because if I tell somebody that's something that's not true, find out about it, then obviously it's it's not very helpful to me. I stole one of Eric's. I put down critical thinking. It's one of the things I'm really good at, just making sure that I understand exactly why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. Um, I also put down listening. I think that's one of the most important things that we can do as well, just to make sure that just make sure that we get the whole point of what anybody is saying, and just to make sure that that I understand where somebody's really coming from, so that I can give them the right information or something like that. And then the last one I have here is humor, because everybody knows I'm funny. I'm just kidding. um, but anyways, but yeah, so just keeping a light heart and not having to not getting too worried about life and general attitude about it. So
Still there, Josh?
looks like yeah, and so I'll wait.
You still there?
I think I'm back.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're back.
we caught the end of that.
Good.
So cool.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So yeah. So unless you guys have anything else to add, I think I'm pretty set in wrapping up the call.
Cool. So yeah, I would say anyone watching this, like Josh said, he did a great job at the beginning explaining what our team's about. And one thing I wanted to explain is that, we created this group together. It started out kind of as my idea, and then Mallory, the part about the book club, she came up with that. And like I said, it's an accountability group. But one of the things that we do is that we read a book a month, and the person who picked the book ends up leading these hangouts each week. So Josh did this month, Mallory did last month. I didn't do my month because it was before we started and my book was too long, but that's a different story. But it's cool because it gives everyone in this group a chance to be the leader in the group for the month and lead the hangouts and lead the discussion. And, everyone feels they're a part of it. And one of the things that one of my mentors, Brendan Bouchard, said is people support what they create. So if we all feel like we created this group and we're all leaders and we're all have to be here to give something to each other and to the group and to hold each other accountable of our goals, then it all comes together. So for the rest of the month, Josh will be leading the calls. He talked about the next couple of chapters next week, so I'm looking forward to that. I wanted to give some quick recognition before we finish up to Josh, because he's actually been doing the best job out of all of us of being that accountability, because I know he's texted Mallory and texted me multiple times to ask our progress on our goals or things that we said we were going to do. Did you do this? Did you do that? And that's what the group's really all about. And sometimes people look at some sort of accountability and say, oh, well, if it costs money, I can't do it. If it takes too much of my time, I can't do it. And the issue with that thought process is you don't realize what you miss out on when you don't have someone holding you accountable. And one quick example is if you think about going to the gym, say, I really got to go to the gym. But if no one knows you're going to commit to go to the gym, even though you say that, as soon as you decide, I'm not sure if I want to do this, and no one knows that you had the goal, and no one knows that you stepped away from the goal, the only person you're letting you down is yourself. And usually it's pretty easy to let yourself down because you can rationalize to yourself. But when you have a group like this, when you don't follow through, they're going to give you a little bit of not negative feedback, but constructive criticism, give you that little uncomfortable feeling, but also be like, hey, no big deal, let's keep going. And that balance is what makes it all possible. And I know this group's going to hit their goals. So if you want to, check out what we're all about, you can click the link below and hear about our group. And, it's a really cool thing we're doing with the book club and the hangouts and the masterminds and things that we do. So that's all I got. Great job, Josh. Appreciate you being kind of the leader of the accountability so far. So that's been awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. Can we, should we announce the next mastermind too?
Yeah, I just, one of the things I just wanted to, since we hadn't talked about it for a couple of weeks, as long as it's still good for Mal, I'm ready to go. Yeah, so
Okay.
Go for it.
Cool. All right, cool. So every couple of months, um, the group of us gets together for a mastermind conference. That's what we call a mastermind conference. And so it's basically essentially like these calls on steroids, essentially. And so we all kind of get together for a couple of days, and we spend. The first one we did was at a hotel. Last one we did was at Eric's house, and we get together and spend a couple of days together. Most of it is going to do stuff like this, where we talk about different concepts and different principles that we can all implement into our lives, help us make progress to our goals and all that sort of stuff. And about 20% of it is just going out and seeing the area that we're in, and getting to experience the culture and just getting to spend some time, essentially kind of bonding. Term. So, and it's a ton of fun. But for a conference that you go to Robinson, $4,000 to $6,000, depending where you go. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me.
We got part of that, but I think you kind of cut out after you said 20% we focused on fun and 80% we do learning like this from each other, but in an in-person setting, which makes it fun and all that. And obviously, like you were mentioning that most of us have been to a bunch of expensive conferences. I know Josh has been to a couple of Tony Robbins. One was like $500, one was like that 4,000 or 5,000, and I've been to a bunch. I know Mallory's been to a ton of different conferences, and we're going to add very similar value, but we're also trying to create this group, at least at the outset, to be a place where it's a resource for accountability. And we all have different groups, and especially some of us have financial goals. So what we're doing for the time being, as we're trying to build upon the results that we get before we expand it out further. So what we're doing is we're sticking with what we've been doing for a while, which is basically, it's $100 a month to be in the group. Basically, you could pay once a quarter, $300, and that gets you to be part of our group here with the book club and also the masterminds and all that stuff. And what that does is that pays for us to run the group, but then also to do some of the fun things that we're going to do at the masterminds. We usually go to a sporting event or do something fun or whatever. So that's what we're really all about. So lots of value, but we have some fun too. And I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Josh.
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. There's not really much else I can add to that. That pretty much covers what the masterminds are. They're a ton of fun. If you're thinking about going, you should definitely just go. It's that good. So I wouldn't lie to you, like I've said before. So yeah, that's my
all right, cool. So
thing about the masterminds.
Awesome. Well, great job, Josh. We'll wrap it up. Go ahead.
Right.
I don't know what happens, but your room turns like bright red when you also lose the bandwidth. It's so funny. Oh man. Anyway, great job, Josh. We'll see you on next week's Hangout. Thanks, guys, and we will talk to you soon. Live the movie.